Welcome to the University of Michigan Sports Management Summer Series. We hope you're well. My name is Barry Klarberg, and I will again be your host today. Today is our part 5 of our 6-part series, and our topic today is technology and the digital media in sports. Based on a study by Deloitte and the IDC, it is forecasted that spending on artificial intelligence, AI, will grow to more than $98 billion in 2023. More than 2.5 times the spending level from last year. 73% of IT and online business executives believe that AI is critically important to their businesses today. 61% say AI will substantially transform their industries in the next 3 years. Artificial intelligence involves using computers to do things that traditionally requires human intelligence. This means creating algorithms to classify, analyze, and draw predictions from data. It also involves acting on data, learning from new data, and improving over time. Society is now in the midst of an increasing complex digital media revolution. Ships are being driven by the voice of the market rather than the industries which have historically led by economic transformations. The emergence of competitive gaming and esports organically grew out of the interest that people had for video games and the current popularity of Instagram as a social platform. TikTok, which has gained national attention during this pandemic, has been in discussions lately to be banned by the United States or acquired by a company that's US-based, or just merely deleted off of our phones to reduce security concerns. It is described that TikTok was referenced as the Trojan horse of Chinese intelligence. Prior to this digital era, traditional enterprises set the tone of supply and demand by offering consumers products along some advertising to create brand awareness. Now with the range of digital and social media options, organizations need to understand where the attention of the audience is. Millennials, now Gen Z, are in the forefront of the business in determining how we retain this relevant info. Today, I welcome Eddie Ibanez, Charles Morris, Ariel, LaFond, and Chase Winovich. Eddie Ibanez, once contracted by the United States government at the age of 18 years old to find patterns that help identify various terrorist threats. Today, the president of Zenabi Data, specializing in artificial intelligence and data science. His clients today include Priceline.com, the Philadelphia Eagles, Stephen Ross, and Chris and Tory Burch. Say hello to Charles Morris, CEO of 17 Newbury. Is an experienced entrepreneur with deep passion for the sports and entertainment industry, with a focus on digital strategy and creative branding. Ariel LaFond, formerly of Pricewaterhouse, today is the Director of Digital Influence at Monarch Advisory. We welcome her as well. And finally, and not for the least, Chase Winovich, once voted the Bo Schemler Most Valuable Player by his teammates in Michigan, is in the second year as a linebacker of the New England Patriots and partners at 17 Newbury. Well, Chase, let's just start with you today. First of all, thank you for making time. I know you're in the middle of practicing, and there's a lot of shoes to fill there in New England with some departures of some other Michigan alumni and all. But listen, if you follow your career between high school, college, and professional now, based on your perspective of technology, you see it a lot. I mean, you're seeing it in the sport of football, whether being in the training facility, the practice field, during film, in-game, or possibly elsewhere. What's your thoughts on what is, as you grow up within the football world and the sports world, what's been the biggest changes that you've seen in the areas of technology?
Thank you for the introduction, Barry. It's great to be here. Hello, everyone in Michigan. Go Blue, as always. Anyone that's not associated with Michigan, welcome you as well. In terms of technology, obviously, like the most obvious one would be just in terms of the equipment. That's the first thing that comes to mind is the equipment that we wear. It's obviously gotten a lot lighter. there's a lot of different advancements in, in the ways that, our equipment's made, just from the material, from the design, even the helmet itself has undergone, a large transformation. But, there's a lot of advances off the field as well. If you go back, you have when I think of football and I think of old school coach, Bo Schembechler, he's sitting there with the projector and his players are watching, the really grainy film. Nowadays, we can watch football from, every different angle, from every practice going back really as far back as they've been keeping, this stuff in the database. And so, that alone is, a huge advancement and a huge advantage for someone like myself, who tries to take advantage of those sorts of things. Eddie's done, I don't know if you guys have talked about this yet, but Eddie's done actually a lot of work, helping with all the NFLs. They do this thing for us where they put a chip actually in our shoulder pads. So when we go out, during games and stuff, they'll track our speed and they'll force when we actually go against other players and hit them. And so there's a whole metric of different numbers that they can actually measure. And then even when we're working out off the field, they actually put a GPS on us as well, so they could track our speed. That was something that was brought up during the off season, was just as a recovery standpoint, coming, how is he progressing? And there's actual numbers now that we can consult, even from how we weigh in. It's not just weighing in anymore. It's, what is your body fat percentage? What is your body fat percentage compared to last year? And then you're taking all these different metrics and kind of meshing them together, which obviously opens up other people in other areas of expertise. I know I always joke around because it seems like everyone's from Australia, but there's a lot of sports scientists now that, are just these people dedicated to extracting those numbers and applying them in real life. But in the ways of technology, I'd say those are the biggest advancements.
It's interesting you say that if you think about, and I relate back to those grainy films, it reminds me of the movie Rudy, where the coach is sitting there and he's watching film as the guys roll in there, saying that they should get Rudy to play that game. And it's interesting, if you walk into any type of professional locker room in the major sports today, there you have the general manager, the president, and then you have an analytics room. And I walked into the Nets analytics room, and I'll share with you guys later when we're on there. But the analytics guys I said, where you guys go to school? And, I didn't know who these guys were. And they were MIT, they were Harvard, they were Yale. I mean, there were some even from Michigan and all. And I said, what are you guys doing? And they said, we're in charge of analytics. And I said, give me an example. And you'll see later that I'll show a thing is that the amount of three-point shots that an NBA team is making has increased by 50%. The amount of three-point shots taken from the side of the basket decreased by 22%. It's been proven that most threes are hit on the right side or the left side of the arc. They can tell you, based on a particular player that you're playing that night, when he comes down the court and he shoots the three, the odds are he's going to spot number 4. And they tell him exactly where to go. And that's based on data that some teams have and other teams don't have. But the old school of a baseball stat guy sitting there and saying, those things are all changed right now. And I agree with you with that. While we have you, Chase, and we know your time is limited to get on the field, Megan had a question for you regarding branding in college right now.
Hi, Chase. Thank you for being with us today. After starting to create your own brand in college at a time where you didn't have the rights to your own name, image, and likeness, went out and that opportunity while tackling school and sports, how do you think that will work for them? And for example, do you see branding agencies being more hands-on and having meetings with these student athletes, or will some student athletes be hesitant in creating a brand that could potentially not fit for them as they go on in a few years into their careers, whether it be sport-related?
Let me just jump in there because she cut out for a couple seconds. So the question that really comes in there is that branding for a college athlete right now, the big change in Chase, you and I have had conversations when you were at Michigan of the things that you wanted to do, but you couldn't because you didn't have your rights during college. Now those things have changed. So now you have college athletes who can actually cut deals on their own to do things. What's your thoughts on the change on that?
I think, honestly, this goes back to technology as well. One area that technology has really changed things is that it indirectly has changed football in a lot of ways, but one of them is it's provided players with a voice. Like you saw that recently with like racial justice and everything going around, just the current climate, of America. And I think people are starting to realize, especially players in general, that, their voices are a lot more powerful. And part of that is them having a platform, which is indirectly because, they have social media, and all of a sudden, they have smartphones and they have access to be able to share their voices, and people can now follow them and follow athletes. And, I certainly feel it was that way in college. I certainly felt, like it was a dilemma of sorts for me to go to Chipotle, and just try to eat some food at times. It's just like, you always got to be, just on. You always got to be ready to, just in case people, stop you and, say what's up or want to take a picture or whatever. You can't be dressing in, like a complete and total bum. I guess is one of the downsides. That's one aspect. But with regards to, the opportunities that lie ahead for college athletes coming up, just from a branding standpoint, we've obviously come a long way, and there's just going to be a lot of opportunities for them to, it's pretty, common sense, I'd say, but there's going to be a lot of opportunities. And I think media agencies would be, I'm sure there's already people that are, kind of licking their chops in a way to get the opportunity to work with some of these big name college athletes. And like, there's so much money involved as it is. And, the college athletes, I'm sure feel the same way in terms of, this is an opportunity for them to kind of provide for their families. It always seemed kind of silly for me, or to me, I guess I should say, that athletes could go and they could do all this hard work, but, they weren't allowed to sign a football without like worrying that someone's going to put it on eBay and that could somehow get traced back to you and you could get in trouble. It just, like your own likeness, it seemed like common sense to me. And I definitely, wish college athletes luck in their mission to get full sovereignty of those rights. And yeah, that's pretty much the question, I think.
So it's, I guess you should be congratulated. I heard about your investment in eFuse in the gaming space and all, and seems like you're bullish in this area. Give us a little background of what eFuse is and what your plans are for it.
Yeah, so eFuse is a network where it's basically Facebook meets LinkedIn of gaming. That's how I, kind of mansplain it or explain it. It's, it's a great network opportunity where there's really nothing like it. You obviously have Facebook gaming, you have YouTube gaming, you have Twitch, you have these platforms that people can go and stream, but you have nothing to kind of where people and gamers in general can kind of go and create their profiles and create their identities and promote their channels and grow them specifically just for gaming. So in terms of like it being a niche market and like having a huge opportunity for growth, and you see with just the lack of people actually being able to go outside into the real world and play sports, and just how treacherous it is and tricky it can be with how, with the current state of affairs with COVID, gaming is not going anywhere anytime soon. And so I had the opportunity to partner and to get in on this company. I'm really excited about its future, and I can't wait to help it grow. But we always say the sky's the limit, but we've already been there. So we're going to see how far we can take this thing.
Great. And before we let you go, how does it feel to be the only Michigan graduate on the Patriots this year? Do you think you can hold the torch up there?
It's going to be a lot of pressure, but I'm not the only one. We got Josh Uche, Michael Onwenu, and Devin Asiasi even spent 1 year there. But I will say one more thing, and Charles will talk more about 17 Newbury, but, I've had this conversation with, a couple other athletes already. And this kind of goes back to the whole premise of other people telling your story And this was one of my inspirations for really wanting to get involved with this production company. And one of my ultimate goals, I'd say, to kind of advance these sorts of ideas. And I'd say, ultimately it just seemed like a weird concept to me that, these players, like, it's always somebody else telling your story. It's not the actual player. And so there's obviously a problem with the way it was before, with like not being able to do that because you're not allowed to make money off your own likeness. But, what if there was a way that, athletes could kind of arm other athletes with a way to do that in a meaningful and legit way, a way that had quality and served the, and did it justice, as I like to say, did it what it deserves to be done. And so this is a great opportunity for us and the company. And, I'm looking forward to what lies ahead with the boys.
Great. Well, we again thank you for your time today, and go blue. And we will speak to you shortly. But thank you today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Barry. Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure, bud. So Eddie, let's jump over to you now, and we got the players' perspectives on this and all. So you've been a large proponent of artificial intelligence, Eddie, and listen, I know your history, and listen, you've been gracious enough to come to campus in Ann Arbor to speak to my class and my students and all. And out of each year, and it's the fourth year of doing this and all, you by far bring some of the most creative conversations and instruction. And what people don't know is what I said of how you started with the federal government, and you started off really tracking criminals with burner phones and all. Give us it's a great little story and all, and I think it'd be a great place for you to start off with what you actually did for our feds at the time.
Yeah, hey, well, Barry, absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity always. I love to share a little bit, and if anyone gets anything out of this, it's go blue, right? But so I started off with the TSP, was a terrorist surveillance program, which was heavily funded by the Government Patriot Act, in which we had an ability back then, was cool, to take data off everyone's set-top box, and really the government was really looking at everything at that time. And then guys, I don't know if anyone out there uses a burner phone or whatnot, but a burner phone is a device that you use once and you throw away. You can get them at Walmart if you need to. Now, the thing is with those, the only people you're fooling with those things is like your significant other, or like your brother or sister or something you're trying to hide. Because what we were trying to do is, let's say you had a guy who's a terrorist, let's say his name's Charles Morris, right? So let's say Charles Morris is the guy, the terrorist that you're trying to take down. And then now Charles Morris uses the phone, throws it away, uses the phone, throw it away. And we were back then tracking the unique identifier, which is your cell phone. So when you'd switch your phone number, oh man, we lost him. So Charles Morris thought. So then the thing is, Charles calls his girlfriend, right? And his girlfriend calls her mom, and her girlfriend's mom calls like her aunt, whatever. Right, and then Charles also calls his dad calls his mom, calls his brother, and he leaves a calling pattern. What that calling pattern is a probability tree upside down. And at the bottom, it's always Charles. So he can switch out his number all he wants, but then the pattern of who he calls is the same, so that's how we're able to track them. So we're able to do that, and kind of like we transcended that into business and sports, right? From hotels, understanding, hey, this is the pattern of a 5-star person who books a hotel versus a 4-star person versus a 3. Or, hey, this is a pattern of a player who's most likely to get a soft tissue injury in the near future and whatnot, right? So it's really just about understanding the data and the patterns at a level to discern a new, to get some insight from it.
So let's jump into that. Let's jump right into the work that you did for the Philadelphia Eagles, which led to a Super Bowl championship, led to you getting a Super Bowl ring. Yep. Tell us exactly what your job was to do for them and how it worked out.
No, sure thing. So first off, they said, like, we don't know where to put you, but and then the sports science guy was the one guy. He's like, hey, I got some data. I'm interested. So we took in his data, and then we found out that these players, what happens is it's like a player, as they run around, they get at certain fatigue levels. So if you ever played Street Fighter, the video game, there's like a red bar at the top, and every time you get hit, that red bar goes down until you die. You're KO'd, right? So then we're trying to figure out kind of what that is for a player, and on an injury level, right? There's an injury bar that gets knocked down and that gets KO'd. And what we were able to discern is that, like, so let's say Carson Wentz runs around for 100 yards. After he runs around the field for 100 yards, they call it current distance covered, CDC. He gets a little lethargic, as like, when you run a few miles, you get tired, and that type of thing. So then let's say Clarkson goes from 100 yards till he gets tired to 80. All right, that's a flag, one data point. The other data point is there's a force plate that they stand on, and you stand on it. Now, when you stand on something, you're not 50-50 right to left leg, right? You're like 43-57, right? So if you're 43-57, and you go from 43-57 to 60-40, and your current distance coverage of when you get fatigued goes down, that's a high inclination for a soft tissue injury. And we've been able to predict that with like 98% confidence.
With that information, what's the takeaway from that?
Either bench the guy, less reps, or, strengthen the quads. It's really good for like soft tissue injury in your knees and your legs for the ligaments and whatnot. So then that's when you pass this torch over to the sports science department and the athletic training department. So that way, they condition the guys and the coaches can make the right call.
Very cool. Hey, Charles, let's talk about what you're doing at 17 Newbury right now when your team strive to be on the cutting edge of the digital strategy and branding development. How's the advent of these new social platforms, specifically like a TikTok or all the other traditional ones that you go back and making digital strategies and all? What's your takeaway on all this right now?
Of course. Well, yeah, first off, thank you so much, Barry, for having Chase and I. This is awesome. I guess, on our side, to be frank, we haven't tapped too much yet into TikTok. But what I will say about TikTok is we're blown away by the growth our team has. With Chase, we have, athletic background in the music industry. And one of our business partners, Andrew Signa, his friend, this is kind of a cool story about TikTok, but his friend, this guy named Nice Michael, was one of the first people to post a TikTok video for that #1 song, Old Town Road by Lil Nas X. And that led to over 3 million people making a rendition of the song. And there's actually like a Forbes article about the guy saying like, he was potentially the reason the song did what it did, whatever. But, we're blown away by the growth of it. I have a buddy last week who got 1 million streams on his song in 1 month from TikTok. No paid media or anything. So it's definitely something we're thinking about. But as you hear Chase talk about, we're getting tapped into the gaming scene. And I think one of the platforms that's pretty disruptive, especially with, COVID-19, people not being able to go out, and the gaming industry has just grown immensely. So we're actually working on a couple shows we're producing that are going to go live on a gaming platform and stream platform called Twitch. So if you were to ask me like which one I think is already, being pretty disruptive and going to get even more, I think we have our eyes on Twitch.
It's interesting you say that in terms of the monetization and all. And listen, we do it in my firm, and we took a real hard look at this about 10 years ago. And, we have one of our a group that we handle, the Chainsmokers, and boy, one of their songs was downloaded, I don't know, probably close to 300 to 400 million times. And what we tried to do is try to figure out how to monetize this. And we looked at blockchain and we looked at all these different people to try to help us and all in this area. But the monetization of the things that are produced on the internet today is not as easy as what you would expect to. So if you would say that, listen, on YouTube or on not Uber, but if you're on, let's say, YouTube and all, and you say, listen, there's X amount of hits or repetitions or whatever use of a song and all, you then try to equate how that works. And then you go to a place, something like an Apple Music or Spotify. Like we see what's going on Spotify with millions and millions and hundreds of millions of hits. And a hit is deemed to be if I jump around on a playlist, if I spend less than 15 seconds on a song, it doesn't count. If I spend more than 15 seconds, it counts and it goes to the artist. But then, how do you split that, $14 or $15 a month that let's say that you pay? And it becomes, the world has changed in terms of this. And what we found is that you need to have some type of mechanisms in place to quantify this. And Ariel, let me turn this over to you right now. Let me ask you a question. You share and you have a client named Daniel Bernstein. And in terms of today's consumer, you know, it's very interesting. She has a company called We Wore What. Explain her success, explain her target audience, and what's real the difference. And let's start with that in the beginning.
Yeah, so hi guys. Thanks for the intro earlier, by the way. So I would say Danielle is so successful because her target audience is people that are just like she is. I think celebrities are a tougher reach because they're more expensive for brands to work with, and it's harder for the average consumer to relate to a celebrity or afford a celebrity lifestyle. Whereas someone like Danielle, who's in her late 20s, has a little bit more disposable income, is still someone that's reachable to other late 20 females living in the city. So I think most influencers are just trying to find people that are like their own target market is really themselves and like people just like them, their own demographic.
That's really interesting. And also the celebrity usage. I mean, Chase is a celebrity. He's an athlete and all. As opposed to going after a person like that, the play is to go after a person that's influential. Chase can be influential and he can be a celebrity. And there's a thing called a Q score, and the Q score will take if people know you, they basically take your picture and they put it up in front of 3,000 people and they say, do you know the name? Do you know the person? And if you do that, then you say, is this person trustworthy? Would you buy something from that person? So the fact that Charlie Sheen is known by a lot of different people, he may not equate to a sale. Jim Parsons, who's on TV, was known to a lot less people. Charlie Sheen's on 2.5 Men. People knew who he was. People aren't going to advertise with him. Parsons is on Big Bang Theory. People knew of him, knew less of him. But all of a sudden, Intel says, we want you. Because not only do people know you, but people trust you for their product. And that's on the celebrity space. And then you had these influencers come in that said, listen, we're not anything special. We're just in the know. And the amount of people now relying on these influences, as you can see, are changing quite a bit. And now people are looking toward these people in terms of technology. The other thing is that those people can do a lot more. And I always say that, are they hungrier at the end of the day? When you have an athlete that gets paid, is a very well-known athlete, and we're blessed with a number of them as clients, they may say, listen, Barry, I just want to spend time with my kids. Like somebody's paying me $25, $30 million to play basketball. I'm okay with that. I don't need to do a commercial to make a couple $100,000. And the play is that these influencers would jump on that opportunity, give more. So the athlete or the celebrity may not always equate to a bigger deal. Some do and some don't. Like a Beyonce capitalizes on her celebrity. Serena capitalizes on her celebrity. But the use of these influences are quite different and good. So I thank you for your comments and all. Eddie, let's flip back to you for a little while here. Youth, sporting, the young, the youth, do you see the technology that you're providing or you provided the Eagles getting down to the younger levels right now? I guess we lost Eddie somewhere on the beach somewhere, but that's okay. I think what Eddie would say if he was on, he would say something like, yes, I agree. I think there's a great opportunity to take my expertise and taking it to the youth level. With that, Patrick, let's pull up the things that we got from the Nets and take a look at that.
Sure. There we are.
Okay. So let's go through what they sent over and all as something in terms of analytics and all. So if we look at this, I find this thing to be very interesting. They went from the dark ages, the box era, to the data ball of where we are right now. So from old to most recent to very recent of where it is. The old school in terms of the basic, it's that guy sitting in the stands marking off where the guy's shooting from. Baseball players what's the trend of a pitcher, what's the trend of a batter, what's the trend of an outfielder, where they play them. Then you had the box era, which is a little bit different, that provided a little bit more of complete data that you get from logistics from the game. Today, the world is a lot different. It's based on optical training. It's based on a whole host of different things. The Nets, go back one more slide there, or go up one more slide. So here, in terms of the Brooklyn Nets and all, so what they do is they turn to their coaches. They help them with shot selection, offensive schemes, defensive schemes, performance, projected minutes, how long the player should be out there, and the resting of the players, as Eddie spoke to. In terms of the front office, how high and where in the draft to take the player. You get a player like Spencer Dinwiddie, who was not drafted in the first round, who's an all-star right now, but they saw something in him in terms of being a second-round draft choice that provided them certain things that they triggered off in their analysis. They look at and they use this data for contract negotiations or just to walk away from a player. Trade talks, continue to trade, continue to work, the value of a draft choice, to go through that. And on the drafting side, to look at that in terms of career projections of where they are. I remember back in the day, you had some statistics, but most leagues, they were more concerned about the behavioral science of the player. They were more concerned was, is this player going to show up on time? Is he trustworthy? Will he land up being a good person for our organization? That's important right now, but now you have to add all the analytics into this. Let's flip through the next page here. So here's what they did, was really interesting. I saw they took Joe Harris and they showed this to Joe. And what they said here is that this is, if you're competing against Joe, or they would show this to Joe and they said, okay, here's your efficiency and here's where we are right now. Most of your shots, you can see where he's taken around the perimeter. Not much is taken outside. If you look between the three-point arc and getting under the basket there, he only has a half a dozen shots there. So most of the shots that Joe has taken, they tell him statistically, you're better off going for the three. If you have an opportunity under the basket or somewhere in down close, those are the percentages that you do. But if you get outside the lane to the arc, it's not worth taking a shot there based on the risk versus going for a three. Do the flip of this, the next one. This is the defensive play. So they did from the Cleveland Cavaliers, Jordan Clarkson, and they basically turned this over to their players. And they said, this is his frequency of where he's going to shoot from. You can see he's more spattered around the box a little bit more. You can see where his average efficiencies are in the red. So he's going to land up being somewhere north of the arc when he's either getting a pass or whatever. He's not going to be, in terms of high average, he's not really a big three-point shooter, okay? But you have to look in the red dots of where he's scoring the most of his points and all. And that, when you get that as a defensive, so now what the Nets do is they turn this data over to their players the day of a game and they said, you're going to play against Jordan Clarkson. Here's where he's going to land up shooting. Here's where he's going to land up stopping. If he does a three, you want to keep him away from the sides. You want to push him off to the front and to the side. But he, different than Joe, has more shooting inside the arc based on the percentages that he has. Let's flip through this one more. So where is this in terms of the analytics now? It's the use of data, the growth of technology, and using scouting reports, eye tests, market value, ownership, what they need. Flip one more. And I found this to be very interesting. If you look at 2013 to 2014, the amount of shots were taken, where they were taken, but look at the total threes that were taken in 2013 and 2014 season. You had 37.5% shots that were taken by the Nets during that period. The corner shots that were taken represent 20% of that number. Flip then to the next slide based on analytics. you can see the amount of the threes went up and the amount of the corner shots went down. So what they're telling their players are, if you're going to take a shot for a three, the percentages are that you're going to get more reward for the exposure of taking a three. Being on the sides of the basket for the corner of threes is not as likely. Eddie, Eddie, are you back on? Okay, we may have lost him. But Charles, I don't know if you do, I mean, you can see how analytics work here, Charles, in terms of what these numbers and what they look like. It's pretty fascinating, huh?
Very, very.
Yeah, it's quite different, and you can see how these things are just provided, and analytics today for the professional team is in the forefront of helping the players, and those are some of the things that Eddie.
Well, you see too, it's working. It's clearly working.
Yeah, you look at the record of the team; they're gotten better, you know, and so the analytics stuff is, you know, listen, I wish the Knicks invented or had better analytics and all, but I think they're beyond analytics right now. Patrick, why don't we take this down and we'll go back to and we'll
Sure. Yeah, I had a question for Charles.
Sure.
So at 17 Newbury, the branding and production for the Post Malone, Complex, and Live Nation, they all look to be such smooth and seamless integrations. So as many of us know, the NCAA has now allowed student athletes to profit off of their image, name, and likeness, so long as the university or college is not the only one or not the one paying them. This provides direct access to individuals involved in creating what you've referred to as the culture. With all this being said, how do you see 17 Newbury creating the same superior branding for student athletes in the future as you do for your companies and clients?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely a very relevant question right now with everything that's going on in NCAA. I mean, you know, you have guys before this leaving, you know, super early to go to the draft because, you know, they have to care for their families, like Chase was talking about. You have guys, you know, guys like right now, like Nick Sirianno, he's one of the number one wrestlers in the country. You know, being forced into a decision if he's going to choose, if he's going to, you know, come back to Rutgers and wrestle another year and try to get another national championship, or, you know, try to make it to the Olympic team. So I you know, it's very relevant for us right now. And what's cool and why I think we can be at the forefront of it is because we have, you know, we're able to provide not only production capabilities for our clients, but also branding. And Chase was kind of talking about that. Another thing that makes us unique is Chase was kind of talking about that athlete to athlete relationship that we can provide. I can't name some of the other athletes that we're working with, but I can tell you that Chase is very involved in the creative process, and he can, you know, be the person that, you know, he's living it and already lived the college experience. So he helps us cater, you know, their story. And the last point that I'll make towards that is these young guys that, you know, they're so driven and, you know, so ambitious, and they want to tell their own story. And what's you know, what 17 Newbury does is we're just a service there to tell their own story. They have full creative control. It's not like we're trying to create, you know, another path for them or tell another story. It's, you know, it's all their vision. So I think, you know, we're a bunch of young guys partnering with a bunch of young guys in that situation. So the energy is just through the roof, and, you know, we're capitalizing right now, and, you know, we plan to continue so as well.
For sure.
Let's go to the audience. I think there's a few questions. Megan, do you have anything to report?
I have one right here for Ariel, and the question is, digital influencers are continuing to rise as social media grows. In a time where everyone has to quarantine and everyone is on their phones, how do you see this space shifting for influencers in order for them to stand out?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think I personally have seen a lot of it as well as through my clients. I think that everyone needs to be extra careful with what they're saying given the current client. And I think a lot of influencers have made their platforms more positive and helped use it for change. So I think that I'm really lucky to work with so many people that are amazing and trying to give back and do all of that, because if they're not being as authentic, I think that they're losing followers quickly and losing sponsors quickly as well. So I think that they're just being extra cautious and trying to really use this opportunity to give back.
Thank you.
Patrick, do you questions from the group that you can see?
Yeah, I think we have one more. At risk of beating a dead horse, Bryn asks for the whole panel, how has the COVID pandemic affected your business strategy personally?
Charles, why don't we start with you?
Yeah. So what's interesting about us is before COVID and over the past year, 17 Newbury was catered towards the music industry and the restaurant and hospitality industry, providing media. So we were working, I had my guy, we were working with Live Nation, some top restaurant groups, and I had our guys out probably around doing 5 to 6 shows a week. We were doing music festivals, the whole thing. And it wasn't until January that we met Chase. And that's when we started to, and also in December and January, we started to work more in the branded content space. So the pivot was already happening. And then I found myself in Foxborough, where the Patriots play. Probably would get there after Chase's practice until, get there at 3 p.m. and leave at 4 a.m. and the creative process there. And this became more than just a show series that we were putting together for Chase. So the pivot was already happening, and then COVID happened. So obviously that, wiped out, live entertainment, and the restaurant industry took a hit. But it allowed us to, take a step back and really focus on the athlete and branded content space. And we're in a better spot than ever right now, actually. So we were able to come out on top right now.
That's cool. It's interesting how I find that smart people and smart groups are able to transform themselves. And you just have to sit back and you make changes and you pivot. Listen, there are a lot of people who you can sit in the problem. And there are others who will just take that and run with it. And I think you guys have done a great job of how you transformed back in that. And it's interesting how the world is changing and all. And, in baseball owners and everybody, it's everybody's trying to do something different. I remember early COVID, somebody came to me and my involvement with the Yankees. They said, "Can you put us in front of the New York Yankees? We want to do these signs with family pictures in the front row, and we'll sell them." And I said, "I don't think the Yankees will do that. The Mets will probably do something like that." And the Mets landed up doing something like that. And I looked at it and I said, "Yeah, it's cool. It's a little hokey and all." And then I saw what the NBA did, and I said, "Man, these guys are thinking, right?" So the NBA, for those who have not seen it, they're doing this visual seat that you buy through Mick Ultra seating, where you actually buy a Zoom seat that you can sit there and you can watch the game from the Zoom seat that you have. And you're actually a live picture of you right in the stadium and right in the seats. So it's not just a stagnant person in a sign, it's an actual fan watching. And then you sell that. So listen, there are people who I said, "Wow, that's a pretty cool thing." The platform that we're on right now, Zoom, right? In March 13th, somebody said we're doing a Zoom call. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Right? We didn't know what Zoom was. You used, Skype. Skype was a big thing, and nobody knew Skype was different. I said, "Why aren't we using Skype?" He said, "I don't know. Everybody's using Zoom." And all of a sudden, Zoom is such a practical software package where we're in the business world and all. And if you think about the change in COVID, I'm doing twice the amount of meetings in the same amount of time, covering more work for more people with less BS. That's what we learned to do. So when we do a meeting for let's say a Zoom call at 3 to 5 or 3 to 4, we get in there, do our business, and when everybody's done, they close off, and then they're able to do their work. There's no travel, there's no security, no nothing. So I think it's interesting what's happening in the world right now. So
Very, very,
you know,
very.
so it's exciting and all. Well, we
Very
thank
exciting. Yeah, I think-
everybody. What's that?
No, I can just say I think all of our guys can attest that. I mean, we've gotten more done in the past 3-4 months than ever. I mean, everyone's more focused, but I agree with what you're saying.
That's cool.
sure.
Well, I thank everybody today. I know Chase had to leave and Eddie had to cut off based on the technology. There was big storms in New England last night, and a lot of the data. You know, I'm in the city right now, but my house in Connecticut hasn't had power now. But it's all grateful, and we're happy to be here. So I thank everybody. Thank the team today. We have one more week left. In 2 weeks, we'll talk about sports evaluations. Going to spend a little time going over. We'll have possibly some guests from the new the National Women's Soccer League, which is really taking the country, you know, by form right now. So with that, just thanks everybody and go blue.